Before you enjoy this video, why not consider signing up for an account at PAX? Whether you're a player, agent, club, or scout, PAX is for you. Create your free profile and connect with those in the industry today. For more information, please visit us at www.paxsports.com. That's www.paxsports.com. Now please go ahead and enjoy our video presentation. Alright guys, welcome to NextGenRugga. So we continue our quest for the South African all-time schools 15 by looking this time at the team of the 2000s. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button as well as the bell notification to keep updated when new videos are released continually, and do me a favor and smash that like button down below. You'll be helping me out a heck of a lot. So once this has been released, what we'll start doing is doing the voting process where you guys will help select the all-time South African schools 15. So let's get into the team of the 2000s. So we start off with the back three. So at fullback we have Henny Daniela, the class of 2002 from Paul Gymnasium. This guy was just a giant. I mean, to get a fullback of this size in rugby is not very common at all. And although he never reached the pinnacle of rugby, he was kept out by some, once-in-a-generation type players at fullback, but definitely a very underrated player, very consistent as well, and he represented the Cheetahs with pride, so definitely a legend of schoolboy rugby. Then our first wing, we have Wynand Willis, class of 2006 from Waterkloof, and what a player this guy was. He was an absolute tank. I mean, the Waterkloof backline of 2006 must go down as one of the best backlines in South African schoolboy rugby history, and Willis was one of the key players for that team. From what I understand, he's still playing rugby, or maybe he just recently retired because of injury. But yeah, this guy was way ahead of his time, and unfortunately injuries took their toll and sort of robbed him of the ability to go right to the top of the game. And our other wing we have is Marius Dalport, class of 2003. He actually went to a school called Swartkop, or Swartkops. So to get noticed at a smaller school of this size says one thing, but when you saw him run out for the South African, I believe it was South African under 19 team, and then the SA under 21 team, you knew that there was a special player here. So he didn't quite fulfill his full potential as a senior, but he still had a pretty respectable career. But at schoolboy level, I don't think he had an equal in the 2000s. I mean, that's for sure. Then moving on to our centres. First centre we have, this was unanimous. Robert Eberson, class of 2007. I don't think there was a better centre in school rugby history. And I'm not trying to be biased here or anything like that, or try and jump the gun. But, Robert was just unbelievable at school level. The Grey College team of 2007, I've spoken about it a heck of a lot with you guys. A legendary team, and this was by far the best player of that team. It wasn't even close. He just absolutely decimated other backlines. He just made it look easy. And I still think he's one of the most overrated players at senior level. Now, he's playing his trade in France, but I still think this guy should have definitely been, he could have been a 100-plus cap Springbok. And I think if he was born in a country that appreciated his skills, even if it was in Australia or New Zealand, even, or any of the other countries, I think, not being born in a size-obsessed country, he would have gone on to be an absolute stalwart for any other country. And I think it's just disappointing that we didn't get to see him play at the top at international level. But yeah, definitely a legend of school rugby, one of the best ever. In either centre we have Stefan Watermeyer, another backline player from the class of 2006 Waterkloof, and yeah, this guy was an exceptional player as well. Absolute points machine for the Waterkloof team. I think it's fair to say they were definitely one of the top schools in the country that year, if not the best. I think there would be a few arguments about that, but yeah, definitely one of the key players for that team. And he did have a pretty respectable senior career, although I don't think as successful as you would have thought if you had seen him at school level. Moving on to the halfback, scrum half, we have from Sachs, class of 2002, Paul Dalport. Now, Dalport's better known as a sevens player. He's still involved in the coaching setup in sevens rugby.
But at school level, he was a deadly scrum half. He played SA Schools 2 years in a row. He actually he played for the South African under-19 team or the under-21 team. I think he formed a halfback combination with Dolly. Very, very great combination they had. I think they went to school together as well. But yeah, I mean, the fewer players that were more talented than Delport at school level. I think there's no doubt about that. Then our fly off, we have Derek Hoogaard, Boland Landbou class of 2001. Now, Derek Hoogaard, I mean, this is just a tragic career story right over here. Basically, the year after leaving school, he almost single-handedly won the Currie Cup for the Blue Bulls. I mean, at 19 years of age, it's crazy. Then he got drafted into the Springbok squad in 2003, where he got some opportunities, obviously due to a lack of form, that the team had the tournament that year. And I think anyone would have thought that he would have gone on to have a career where he got over 100 caps for the Springboks. I think no one would have thought any differently. But everything changed when Jake White was named Springbok coach in 2004. Now, Jake White is a legendary coach, don't get me wrong. But the type of fly-off that he was looking for, Hoogaard didn't fit the mold. He wanted someone that was quick off the line, creative, all the rest of that. So he went with Jaco van der Westhuizen, which I personally feel was a mistake. I think Hoogaard could have been developed into a more attacking player if Jake White spent some time with him. And I think he was at the right age to have his game developed by Jake at that stage. But then Morné Steyn emerged as well at the Bulls, so that gave him increased competition. But I think this is definitely one of rugby's great tragedies. If Derek Hoogaard got managed properly and taken care of, I think he could have become a Springbok legend and one of the all-time leading point scorers in the history of rugby. Then we move on to the loose forwards. So we start with the eighth man, Ashley Johnson, the class of 2004, Paul Gymnasium. Now, old Jonathan Kaplan, he did his all-time 15, and I mean, Kaplan knows his stuff, but he put Johnson as a hooker. Now, Johnson wasn't a hooker at school level. He was an eighth man, and he was an absolute beast of an eighth man at that. I think Paul Jim were unbeaten that year, and I think Ashley Johnson was the captain. But yeah, he's more known as a hooker nowadays. But, at school level, he was an eighth man and probably the best eighth man of his generation. I think that's without doubt. First flanker, here's a controversial one. I can't wait for you Loftus cheering people out there to give it to me. But I'm afraid, I mean, there is no choice here. It has to be Luke Watson, Grey High School class of 2001. If you take I think Luke is another example of, a tragic figure in terms of Jake White's 10 years coach. I think if anybody else was coach in 2004, except for Jake White, I think Derek Hoogaard and Luke Watson would have definitely formed part of the squad. I kept on thinking at that stage, imagine a loose trio of Luke Watson, Skalkberger, and John Smith. I mean, that would be amazing. But, Jake just didn't rate Luke, and at the end of the day, Jake did win the World Cup in 2007, so what the hell do I know? I'm just a guy with some opinions. But to me, Luke at school level was... There was no equal to him. Simply put, there was no equal to him at school level. In 2000, he played SA Schools A, and he led the team to a victory over the SA Schools team. And then in 2001, without surprise, he was SA Schools captain. First year out of school, the guy's playing Currie Cup rugby for EP, moves to the Sharks, plays Currie Cup rugby there, moves to Western Province, becomes one of the key players over there. Such a talented player. But definitely a tragic figure in terms of South African rugby. I think he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But one thing you got to respect about Luke is that, he sticks by his word, and he doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. So, I mean, his word is his word, and unfortunately that gets him in a lot of trouble. And he still had a great rugby career, guys. I mean, he still had a very, very great rugby career, but unfortunately he never became the Springbok legend that, I feel that he could have become. Other flank, great college, Heinrich Brosseau, class of 2004. And, this guy was the ultimate fetcher, wasn't he? I mean, there's no one else that came close to him in terms of fetching. And although Grey College's team in 2004 wasn't their best ever team, I think they lost a couple of matches that you wouldn't expect them to lose. But Brissot already showed his talent at this stage, and I think he definitely deserves his place in the team of the 2000s. Moving on to the locks. First lock we have is Alistair Hargreaves, Durban High School, class of 2004. And, Hargreaves, what a talented player this guy was. Unfortunately, he was in the same era as Bucky's Wood and Victor Matfield, which means that, you're not going to end up playing 50 or 60 tests, if that's the case. But I think if he was in the modern day, I think he probably would have moved over to one of the European nations and ended up playing a lot of games for them. But he chose to stay in South Africa, had a great career over here, very respectable career, and then moved over to Europe where he played for Saracens, had a great career there as well. But he lifted I think 2005, he lifted the Under-19 World Cup for South Africa. And definitely someone that you felt like had a great future in the game. And although he never, played many games for the Springboks, I think he still did become a Springbok, and definitely a legend of high school rugby. The other lock we have is Flip van der Merwe, a great college class of 2003. Yeah, another one that unfortunately was affected by the Boot and Matfield partnership, but he still managed a very, very respectable career. Definitely someone that could have played a lot more tests if it wasn't for those two in front of him. And at school level was an absolute monster. Gray's team of 2003 was one of their best ever teams. And Flippy was definitely a key figure in that team. Then finally we move on to the front row. So the first prop we got is Julian Redling-Hayes, class of 2007 at Monument. And strong as a bull this guy was. And Old Tate, who helped me out with this list as well, he definitely said, right, this is like one of the first names on my list. And I had one or two other players that I was looking at, but I wasn't going to argue with him about this. I mean, he did make some great points about Redling-Hayes. And, even if you take a look at some of the games from back in that time, you could see that this guy was definitely going to go on to high honours, and high honours that he did go on to. Then our other prop is Kuni Westhuizen from Grey College, the class of 2007, another member of the great 2007 team. And Kuni was terrorising opponents at school level. I mean, there is footage available on YouTube. You just got to look for it, but you got to see Kuni at school level. I mean, you would run with the ball and absolutely do damage to people. Definitely one of the stalwarts of his team, and that's saying a lot considering how good the class of 2007 was. Then our final player, and this should be no surprise to you guys at all, Bismarck du Plessis, Grey College class of 2002. Now, I know someone that did play against Bismarck at school level, and he just said to me, it was frightening. It was absolutely frightening. Now, he is a prop, right? And he said you could feel the force when Bismarck was against you in the scrum. You could just feel that raw power. And, basically when you ran on the field against this guy, you knew that there was trouble coming. I think with Bismarck is that he had a great South African career. He was a great Springbok, but obviously he had John Smith in front of him, unfortunately. But definitely a legend of South African rugby, guys. I mean, he was a prodigy at school level. He fulfilled his potential. Unfortunately, one of our best ever captains was in front of him at hooker. But, I think there's no doubt about, Bismarck's place in rugby folklore history, so to speak. He'll go down as a Springbok legend. He'll go down as a schoolboy legend. And I think, without doubt, will go down as a legend of the Grey College team of 2002. Yet another unbeaten Grey College team. So that's it, guys. Series over. So next step is we're going to start the voting process, and then we'll release a video that contains the all-time best South African Schools 15. Have a great week further, guys. Cheers. Bye.